What's going on, creators? Just want to get on here and bring everybody back to now. Appreciate y'all being here and vibing with me for a bit. Today, like to just continue the conversation on mental diets and hopefully add something positive to your mental diet for today. And that has to do a lot with embodying the end goal, and doing that in the here and now. It's easy to drift into our old mindset that was, probably the best way to describe it is like a slave mindset where it's constantly following this external narrative, reacting to it, living in fear, hysteria, separateness, and letting go of those thought forms as they arise is really important. It's like, I feel like it's a skill that you can develop the more that you're able to kind of just observe the thought, feel the emotion, but not connect with it like that's who you are, because it's like, but not to like, sit there and just like avoid it either. I mean, it's like being comfortable, being uncomfortable on some level, but ultimately standing in faith that, that you don't gotta worry about how this problem is going to resolve itself. It's about building faith in those times, and how to start doing that is not to avoid difficulties and live in a safe little bubble, but to actually be fully engaged with creation. It's so much different once you unplug from a lot of the things that are promoting separation and unconscious behavior and just unconsciousness. And that's not judging. It's not judging to do that. That's part of like discerning and using logic. It's like, well, every time I listen to liars, then I get triggered and then I get pissed, and then it's creating an illusion of a reality that's not even what I'm witnessing or experiencing. It's like, personally, I've been so just active in my community and just like with my business and like growing it and just doing job after job after job and everything, that it's very little time to live vicariously through archetypes through screens. I got a dozen meat birds. Basically I got a damn farm at this point. It's like I got like a dozen egg laying birds and like a dozen meat birds, which the meat birds are getting ready to be butchered probably by me tomorrow. Still trying to figure out exactly what's going to go on with that. Ideally, I'd rather take them to like a place to get processed and everything, just because time. That's time. But like just I'll probably have half a day and just setting up the whole process of this to deal with these birds and whatnot, where I could take it to a butcher shop or whatever, and it's like 15 minutes and it's done. It's just like they got everything all ready, figured out. And it's a little bit different this time around because we had a turkey last year for Thanksgiving that we basically had from the time it was a chicken or whatever you call a baby turkey, until it got to be about 40 pounds. And that was like kind of an ordeal with these chickens. They're about 7 pounds, and you can learn a lot by watching a flock of birds. It's like you learn a lot about just creation, just watching the way they deal with each other. They're a lot more I don't want to say like jailhouse mentality, but I mean there's definitely like a dominance thing going on, with like the chickens, like there's a misconception that like people are the scourge of the earth and people are violent and they're the only ones that just kill things. And it's like, bro, you have not been around animals then. It's like, I got these meat birds, and it's like, there are a variety of male and female birds, and it only takes 8 weeks by the time they're, small to the time they get big enough to eat. But in that time period, it's like males and females, and you can tell like the roosters, the male chickens now are like 6-7 pounds, and they had an ordeal with the 2 of them just violently attacking each other all day long. And it's to the point like they're bleeding, and just attacking. They would probably murder each other, our strongest one would, and it's not the first time dealing with like them attacking each other. We brought 2 birds that we're going to add to the egg-laying birds flock, and they got violently attacked, and so that's not going to work out. And so But it's fascinating on some level watching their consciousness kind of play out, because they do have like a personality on some level. Different birds have different personalities, but they also have different breeds, because we got different colored eggs. Some are blue, brown, white, I think green. There's like a whole bunch of different variety of colors and stuff. And then we get about like a dozen eggs a day, just about. So we're like selling the eggs and using the money that we make from selling the eggs to then buy food and bedding and shit like that. And yeah, it's quite the self-sustaining little operation. Not to mention like the handyman business. So it's like, springtime for me is just like go, 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 and in doing so, very little even drive to listen to anything other than just what's going on in my space. Which I feel like has been very like freeing. Is one more layer of getting out of the matrix, which I want to share with you guys. Even though you're watching this through like a screen, to try to encourage more and more engagement in the life that God's given you to steward. And not being in such a rat race mentality. And this is something I get into of like, well, if I just had more, then I could be happy or whatever. Catching that as like the slave mentality, not to really say it's a bad thing, because part of like stewarding, the concept of that is like you're always dealing with a reflection of consciousness, so whether it's your relationships, your marriage, your family, job situation, health, money, all of these different aspects, they're all relative to your relationship to your creator, because ultimately God is a source of all of these different elements of your life. And the more that you become aware of that, the more that you realize that you're not separate from these things, the better that you can start to take care of them. So it's like a good example, just doing business things this morning, I was out doing an estimate. And it's like one of like a bigger job. I've been doing a lot bigger jobs. It's like I did just got done renovating a bathroom. Before that, did a big drywall job simultaneously. Before that, painted a house. Before that, renovated a kitchen. So it's just boom, 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 big thing after the next big thing. This thing is like drywall hanging in a basement in a really nice neighborhood. It'd probably be $8,000. I'm gonna quote, to do that, which, kind of, it would be nice to hire some more people to help me do that, because I don't really, want to hang that much drywall, because it's just so labor intensive. But whatever, it is what it is. But like the thing of it is, each one of these jobs, you can start seeing how it's growing and expanding on, okay, well, during this one I was able to stay conscious through the entire process without becoming hysterical, not having fearful, what if this happens? Oh, what if that happens? Oh, what if this scenario manifests? What if I lose money? What if somebody gets hurt? What if, all these what ifs, but like, getting out of that and just like trusting that every time there's a fear, kind of thought, to bring that to awareness in that same moment, the problem and the solution comes at the same time. So it's like, the problem is the slave mind wants to live in fear and be reactive to imaginary problems, where, the new mind, the mind that's like one with the Holy Spirit mind, creates and sees unity and a cohesive harmony of things going on. So it's like every time, faced with like a fear, or what if this happens? What if that happens? Realize, in that same moment, just be like thankful. I don't got to worry about how that's going to happen. The slave mindset is always about efforting and force and what I got to move around and what I got to do. And, not to say that there isn't inspired actions to take. It's like, when somebody calls to do a job or get something done, you go the next logical step. I mean, a lot of this is using logic, logos, in terms of getting shit done, as far as keeping your mind clear, it's and you've already been given the tools to do that, through your life experience, to understand on some level the next logical step, the next logical step. But even with those next logical steps, you always have a choice in those outcomes. So it's like you get confronted with an obstacle or a challenge or new opportunity, whatever it is, and you always have one of two choices. Are you going to be reactive and be in a state of fear and hysteria and see it through a lens of separateness, or are you going to take that thought that's an error that first come, it's like a lot of times like the first initial, and I think a lot of that has to do with just conditioning, comes from like the slave mind, because that's the mindset we've been used to operating in. It was like, well, fear and worst case scenarios, and I gotta, by mental efforting and force, that will keep me safe from these potential problems, and by running through all these problems, then it'll make it run smoother. When that's not true at all. When actually, by focusing on problems, then you start growing problems, and creating more and more problems, because your thoughts and your beliefs and your assumptions are then being reflective into your life. So if you're always assuming there's going to be problems and difficulties and challenges, well then, by your assumption, your unconscious assumption a lot of times of that, well then that's what you get presented with in your bridge of incidents, going to deal with that, and so a lot of this has to do with letting go of these unconscious assumptions and patterns, which makes more suffering and difficulty and hysteria and fear and separation, and instead replacing that with harmony, oneness, connectivity, and ultimately trusting that God's going to lay out the order of what is the best way to say that, the path of least resistance. And instead of wandering around in the assumption that things are going to be stressful and difficult and it's going to be hard, letting that kind of assumption go and trusting that God's going to make this harmonious, that whatever happens is neutral, and ultimately can be used for the good if you're in your right mind. And that can be somewhat challenging sometimes for like our old mindset to hear, because it like immediately snaps to like worst case scenarios and wants to blame things, blame people, blame situations, blame, it's always somebody else's fault. It's, if it wasn't for these people, then I could be happy. And it's like, it's always it's always wants to be happy, but it needs all of these things before that can even be a possibility. That's how you're listening to the wrong mental guide. It's like, get out of that mindset, and there's and realize that needing to get the answer, needing to get to the bottom of it, needing to mentally think and effort, that's part of the ego mind. That's part of the old slave mind. And not to shame and guilt yourself when that happens, but just catch it faster and faster, because it's like, how long are you going to spend reality, the creation here and now, mentally just fucking off, and in the meantime, you're projecting then all of your unconscious fears and separations as a result of thinking like that into your day, when you don't need to do that. It becomes stupid to do that, because it becomes like, well, how long? Why am I going to keep doing that? It doesn't work. How long am I going to keep doubling down on error, before I just like throw it out the window and just embrace a new way to deal with this problem, by realizing that God's the solution to the problem, and it'll be shown to you how to deal with it as it emerges in the here and now. That was one of the big lessons I learned, through having to take care of my dog when she had her like mystery illness. Has been steadily recovering, which has been awesome to watch, and been learning a lot about like healing and my mindset. The whole thing has been coordinated. I mean, you could tell it's been just coordinated, but it gets to a place where it's like, how long are you going to sit there and spend the present moment in grief or fear, hysteria, or whatever, imagining that progressing to the worst case, and imagining drama and suffering and torment and all this type of shit, you don't know what's going to happen next. It's like by doing that, you are perpetuating this problem that is not even a real problem. It's like you don't know what the future holds. The ego likes to think it does. It likes to think, well, if I just prepare for the worst case scenarios. And what happened, for me is when those worst case scenarios started to then manifest, I'd get this fear of like, well, what would you do if this happens? And what would you do if that happens? And then it did happen, and then it's like, regardless of what happens, I'm going to handle it the way I've been handling it with, being present and full conscious awareness of who I am in the face of whatever's happening, and it takes a lot of fear out of the situation when you realize that fear is an illusion anyway. And no matter what happens, you're projecting this worst case scenario imaginings, instead of imagining the best case scenario. Both are equally true. It's like both will project onto creation, and you'll experience that reflection of consciousness. So it's like, are you going to choose the separation, worst case hell scenarios all the time because it could happen? Or, could you envision the best case scenario, but that it also could happen? You don't know either one. And as you rest in faith in the one and actually just trust, in God to work it out, that you don't have to work, getting more and more like, this is unfolding perfectly. I might not agree with it. My discernment says that I'm looking at an illusion. It's okay to be able to recognize illusion for what it is, but not to sit there and believe it, because, all things are possible for God to do. So if you see, everything is either a reflection of love or needs love, so it's like at any particular moment, what are we doing? Are we spending it being hysterical and in fear and in separation and believing that those things are real? Or are you recognizing, the dream for what it is? It's all being reflective of consciousness, and it's all reflecting your beliefs and your assumptions. So start to shift your beliefs and your assumptions in that same moment. And one of the best prayers I feel like is a prayer of gratitude, in the sense that I don't got to figure this out. It's like, oh, you got all this mental activity, all this drama going on. Maybe, drama and creation that you're dealing with. And it's like, oh, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? What am I going to do? At that same moment, just to be thankful is like, thank God I don't got to worry about it. I don't got to worry about how this is going to fix itself. It'll be made clear in the present moment, always, And the more that you believe that, the more you experience that harmony. Part of like stewarding is realizing that everything going on in your life right here and now is that same reflection. And the shit that you don't like is your unconscious beliefs and your assumptions that are producing more and more separation, and beliefs in separation that aren't real, And so the only way that you're going to realize it's not real, though, is to stand in faith and choose choose again, choose a different way to think about it, and realize that the fear that you're feeling, the imaginings that you're feeling, instead of running and hiding from them, just sit with them. It's like, what's the worst thing that happens is like, oh, I have thoughts. Oh, I have feelings because I believe these thoughts for some reason. But the more that you're able to observe the thoughts and able to not be swept away by them, becoming hysterical and then just being reactive and then lashing out and attacking. Let's attack the problem. Let's fight it. It's like the only thing that you need to do is let go of that thought. Just let it go. And on the other side of that is the peace that you're wanting anyway. It's like the drama, you get the drama, all these old thoughts, old beliefs, all the old assumptions coming back that are trying to trick you into believing that you're separate from the event and separate from, that you're just a body, that you're separate and everything else, and not realizing who you actually are in Christ, which is one with creation, on a lot of different levels, but then on the other end of it is, how much are you trusting in the promises of God to, being true, because the way you believe those things is being reflected anyway. Again, it's like you are already doing this, either unconsciously creating hell for yourself, or you can consciously start creating heaven for yourself by realizing that you are already that now. It's like these different desires that come to mind are basically expressing what you're not, what you believe that you're not. So it's like, maybe money's a good example. It's like, oh, if I just had some more, I got some scarcity things, I got, whatever. Instead of like constantly wanting and desiring more, start, thanking God that you are already that, because God's the source of that for you. So it's like you have exactly what you can handle right now without the resistance. So start stewarding what you do have, making better choices with it. A lot of times the more that you give, the more that you get, because just the way consciousness works, so it's like the more that you're giving to others, the more that then all of a sudden you start being blessed with more. So they, as wild as it sounds, I've realized that through my business. It's like, paying, for people all to help, then all of a sudden you get bigger jobs, and now all of a sudden there's more to give, and now all of a sudden you're able to do all these different things where it's like it didn't seem possible before. And you'll only know that through doing it yourself. You can listen to, people saying these things, but it's entirely different when you're the one, standing in faith and not just being reactive to fear. That's something you have to do, is face your own fears, and realize that, that they're illusions, but, you don't only know that by doing it. It's like, if you're avoiding it, because you're already doing it. You're either doing it now or you're not doing it. What are you doing now? It's like, are you engaged with what I'm saying? Coming to some sort of an agreement mentally with that? Or are you just like triggered and just like pissed off and want to attack me? Attack is a great example of, the old slave mind, wanting to attack it. Always like, I got to keep myself safe from some words and ideas. It's like, what a bitch move. It's like, you can't hear words, you can't hear ideas without being triggered by them. It's like, what a bitch. But whatever. People are at different levels of different things. It's how I talk to myself. It's like, if I'm going to be listening to people's ideas, different words, and keep in mind, words are just symbols. It's like, and most of what is in physical reality can be looked at as a word. It's a symbol of a spiritual thing that can be discerned through asking and by prayer and everything. And it's like, well, Mike, what's prayer mean? What's this mean? It's like, go within yourself and define what these things are. It's like, you can look into the Bible. The Bible defines itself in a lot of different ways. But even so, it's between you and God what these words mean. And like, you will be led to the answer anyway as you start to seek the answer. But realize that you don't even really need all this seeking and everything is rejecting the present moment. So it's like, the more that you accept that, reality is what it is, and you stop rejecting it, is very freeing, to actually just embrace reality. As weird as that might sound, but so many times, as you're doing that, you start to realize how many people are living in their 5-year plan, living in, well, if this happens, then this happens. Then there's this moment in time, quote unquote time, of like utopia, I made it. That's an illusion. It's not real. It's like, so you take action now. You are already taking action now, either consciously or unconsciously. And hopefully this is a reminder to start taking more conscious action, start focusing more on being, because ultimately what your old mindset is trying to do, your old slave mind, is trying to create a feeling, trying to create a state of being, opposite of how I can actually do it. It's like, well, first you got to make the money, then you get the car, then you get the power, then you get this and that, like Scarface or whatever, but it's like, no, first you be that state of consciousness, and as you're being that, it becomes reflected in your life, and so I think I'm going to balance, though. I think that was the main things I wanted to talk about, besides just unplugging from the narratives of the world. And it's like, oh, did you hear about monkeypox, Mike? It's like the next hysterical thing. It's like, dude, I care so little. It's like, why does this keep coming to me? And it's like, I don't give a fuck about what the news is trying to create, this reality. And it's like, yeah, there's people that have an invested interest in people staying unconscious, and they do it by fear. So, but the thing, they only do it to themselves, it's like, so it doesn't even matter to me. It's like, if you want to live in a world of separation, which is it's like, if you want to live in a hell world, if you want to live as a slave, keep being puppeted around by all these fairy tales of fear and hysteria, that then ultimately, as you believe these things are real, as you agree to the illusions, then you make it real for yourself. So it's like, why would you make that real for yourself? Why would you take on an illusion, an error, and then all of a sudden make that who you are? It's like, that's not who you are, so it's like, reality is not being reflected through screens. It's like, when you unplug from that shit and you're actually in creation, in nature, and in your fucking, the world that God gave you to live in, none of that shit fucking matters. It's like, so far removed from, like, it's like, that sounds more like an LA problem. That sounds like a New York City problem. That sounds like a problem 500 miles away. That's not reflective of the area that I live in. It's like, and the funniest part of it, to me, is like, the things that people are hysterical about a lot of the time, like, Mike, did you hear that Russia is cutting the fertilizer? We're going to be so fucked now. It's like, you're retarded, because it's like, you have any idea where, it's like, these are all opportunities to create local supplies. It's like around here, there's thousands of fucking cows that just shit, and it's like, every day they shit. It's like, wouldn't be hard to say, hey, farmer, I'm starting a fertilizer business. Can I come clean up your cow pen for free and just take your cow shit? They would jump at it. It's like, oh yeah, that means I don't got to do it. I don't got to pay somebody to do it. You just take it. All these problems are not even they're opportunities for creative people to solve these problems locally. Stop looking towards the federal government. The people that have these global illusions to save you. I mean, it's like, these are opportunities for you to thrive. It's like, you don't need these people. It's like, there is an abundant amount of food, resources, it's everywhere. It's like, thrive. It's like, this idea that you need global management from bureaucracy. Have you dealt with the government before? And the fucking bureaucracy, that's a dead entity. It's a fucking joke. They can't even figure out how to pave a fucking road, and reliably do that. They can't balance a budget. They don't know how to create. It's like the creating is between you and God. Not to say that the government's bad. If it wasn't for the government, we'd be under natural law, which means the biggest fucking violent dude can just come in and just take your shit, fuck your wife, and there's not a fucking thing you can do about it if you can't beat their ass or kill them. So it's like, on some level, it serves a function. It serves as part of creation. So it's not something to bash and everything like that. It's like, it's a good thing that exists on some level, but it's not the savior. it's not the thing that's going to, in most cases, it keeps the people that are unconscious from just running around like a bunch of wild animals, but like, but there will always be, rich people are always going to pay somebody else to protect them and to protect their shit. So if it wasn't the government, it would just be like little gangs, little mafias and shit. People with the cash will pay a small army to keep their shit from getting stolen, burglarized, and violence. People are going to pay for that. They have money, and yeah, it's just the way things are. I mean, it's like so tired in a lot of different ways of like having to play pretend. It's like, well, I'm a panda bear because I said so, and you have to accept that. It's like, what? It's like, I'm not playing your little fucking make-believe game. It's like, and not to say that you should believe the physical world either, because it's an illusion, but all of that has to do with your own discernment that you learn through your spiritual walk. And with that being said, I think I'm gonna bounce. So, thanks everybody for liking, sharing, subscribing, listening. I appreciate your spiritual support and your financial support. Thank you for that. I do have like the rest of like this week off, just put new guitar strings on my guitar. So I'm hoping to just record a cover. I've been kind of just wanting to do that, just to put out like a good energy for people. It's like, I get, if people are like stuck in the matrix, and it's like, without anybody putting out anything that brings joy or happiness or just a fucking timeout from the normal bullshit. If it wasn't for people doing that, you fucking life would suck, and so it's like, I like to do that because then I like that having an option like that for my own life, and so that's why I like to do those. And so hopefully, you guys would like it, and it brings you some sort of, I don't know, time out, I guess, from the normal matrix world, if you're still engaged in that on some level. And if not, it's just, some other thing to free your mind on some level, give you more options of, what would be desirable to do today. Listen to some music, not just mine, but, everybody else's music. There's really only one, musician out there, just with many masks on, but like, other than that, I think I'm gonna bounce. So thanks again for listening, and till the next now, God bless.